Welcome back, everybody, to the Newd and Lude podcast. I'm Julie Cole.
And I am Joanna Livingston, Lewis, Hiller, Megan the Stallion, Derrick.
Oh, we got the real snarl today, huh?
I can't let go of her from this weekend.
I know. It's okay, though, man. And we all need that thing.
Yeah.
You know, it gives us some energy.
Oh, she did. Yeah. Sounds like I'm talking about a personal experience with her, but I am not. I'm just talking about her music at a wedding reception.
That's right. Yeah. You know, it's funny. It's funny. We were listening to a lot of it before this, so we're a little bit punchy.
We're feeling ourselves.
Yeah. I love feeling myself.
Yeah.
Not in that way.
Well, that way too.
We're living up to the name of the podcast already.
It's about time.
Well, we've had some serious
some
content.
heavy stuff. Yeah, for sure.
And we, today might be a little heavy too, but that's okay because we're witnessing.
Yeah.
We're witnessing, and here's the truth of witnessing is that when you've lived through hard stuff, you laugh at crazy shit.
Yes.
We have a really, really, really screwed up sense of humor. Right?
100%. Yeah. Some things that I say, people will just like skirt and like look at me like I'm fucking crazy.
Did you hear that? Okay. We're cute.
You had a death rattle and then you wheezed.
It was I guess it was like a burp bubble that just bubbled up my throat. Because I didn't actually, I was talking, so it was like it bubbled up.
I had this moment of, are we going to ignore that?
Okay.
I sure hope they heard that.
Man, now I can't wipe my eyes because I've taken my glasses off. And then okay. All right, so everybody, welcome back to the Newd and Lude podcast. We're keeping all of that because y'all can hear how punch drunk we are this morning. Man.
And y'all are about to see this and then see us hit the wall and be like,
Oh, no, we're not going to hit the wall, but we'll get serious. It's, I think I was going to say a point of gratitude for me this morning as I wipe my eyes from laughing. That wheeze is what happens when I laugh like so hard is the wheeze. And we used to have, do you remember, I won't say her name, but there was a person that we were friends with for years that came from Irmo who honked like a goose when she was laughing. Do you know who I'm talking about? She'd go, ha, ha, and we would laugh so hard. And we could not. We just made her laugh all the time. I mean, in years it never got old. So, Tabitha, if you're out there, we're talking about you. But everybody knows. Anybody from Irma
I was going to say, I don't think you have to,
anybody knows who knew her.
Hide the
knows
identity.
Her, knows exactly who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. So the point of gratitude for me is the witnessing process, and witnessing is being present, right? So it's present whether you're like throwing down to Megan the Stallion on a dance floor. It's present whether we're sitting here sharing heavy stuff and just holding space for each other. It's laughing. And finding joy in the moment, and that's what witnessing is,
Yes.
It's witnessing ourselves and others. And I'm just grateful for that process and for us to have that process with each other. I love that, that's part of the magic with us.
Yeah. Yes.
So that's my point of gratitude.
Yes. When mine is authenticity that is usually present in presence. I danced my face off this weekend at my stepsister's wedding. She and her wife decided that they were not going to play any of like the bullshit music that usually gets played at weddings, and they played all the good stuff and they didn't censor any of it. And what was awesome is it kept the some people off the dance floor because they just didn't know what to do with the lyrics and the music and it wasn't their norm, their go-to that they felt comfortable with. So it kept them off the dance floor and allowed me to be Elaine from Seinfeld. Yeah. And it was fan-fucking-tastic.
Yeah. Dude, when I'm in my authentic self, I will dance and sing everywhere I go. You've seen it. Like I literally will hip and, skip and hop and, plie up the hiking trail and dance. And when I'm not in that space, like I don't, it's
frozen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it taps into the joy.
Yes. Yes. And I got to share it with my two oldest children, my girls who are 25 and almost 26 and almost 23. And
you're old.
I know. And the oldest one's husband was there, and he is hysterical when he dances. I mean, he is funny. So the four of us had the best time.
Yeah.
The best time.
Yeah. Everybody gets to show up and just be in joy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I was not worried about any motherfucker around me.
Yeah.
I just got to focus on my girls and dance with them.
Yep.
Oh, it was fun.
For those of y'all who you probably can't see it even from the camera if you're watching us, but like Joanna has a shirt on today that says cute but feral. And so I love it. It got posted to my stories. So we may have to post it to the Newd and Lude. Oh, Scott's doing something special, he says. Oh, he's gonna come in on it so you can see it. So now you can see it. He says he apologized for the camera shaking.
Yes, and Scott says there's one out there that says kisses not hisses or kisses and hisses. Kisses not hisses. Yes, and I found it on Amazon.
Kisses and hisses.
The one that's on Amazon is kisses not hisses.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'd say kisses and hisses.
And hisses, both of them, yeah.
Yeah, cute and feral. Mm-hmm. That's right. I think that's anybody who's ever tried to take care of a feral cat kind of gets a picture of what that means.
Yes, anyone that's ever tried to take care of me.
Yeah, me too. You know what? I am going to do the reading.
Okay.
I was hesitant to do this reading because I didn't want anybody to take it personally, but it's such a good reading, and I think it hits a lot of, oh, hey, I read the wrong day.
Isn't that a little serendipitous moment?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to read today's reading.
Okay.
I love this one, too. So it's October 24th when we're recording this.
Yes.
And this is the Book of Awakening by Mark Nepo, which is a meditation book that I really love. So October 24th, it says, the way things are. Be content with what you have. Rejoice in the way things are. When you realize there's nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you. And that's from Lao Tzu. Beyond what we need to survive to better ourselves has come to mean having as much as one can store, and as such turned into an addiction in our modern world. Such a want to have things comes from a sense of scarcity, an anxiety that something is missing, which owning will somehow soothe. But to better ourselves inwardly is another matter. The closer to the heart we take this, the more we find ourselves trying to inhabit what we have carried since the beginning. This want comes from a sense of abundance, a yearning to unlock the mystery of what is already there. This difference became stark for me while struggling with cancer. For while I prayed for things to be better, my prayers were answered when I awoke one morning content to be who I am, no matter what was happening. Though things were not as I wanted, there was truly nothing lacking, and I vowed, as the nurses started their morning rounds, that I would trade places with no one, spirits with all. And then this book gives you a meditation point. It says, center yourself and feel the reality of your life this morning. Let your breath take you, for the moment, beneath your dreams of betterment. As you exhale, feel the soreness all around you. Feel the soreness around all you want. As you inhale, feel the mystery at center, where nothing is lacking.
Love.
Damn.
I know. That's what we were just talking about.
Yeah. Well, it's not necessarily, I mean, it's not an unrelated segue into our kind of where we are in your story, right?
Yeah.
So for those of y'all who are joining us, this is going to be part 5.
Is it 5? Yeah. Okay.
Part 5 or 6 of Joanna's story. It's part 5 or part 6. Either way, you need to go back to the beginning. With Joanna's story, where we left off, in the story was when Mike had passed away.
Yeah.
Mike had passed away.
Yes. And my dad, I was eating my rice and kimchi, and my dad walked in, peered over the island in our kitchen and said, white rice, not brown.
Yeah.
And I just lost my husband, like not lost him in Target, but he had died.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was, and you pointed out that, I instantly became unrelatable.
Yeah.
Is that the word? Yeah. Yes.
Well, you became somebody different because now people don't know
Yeah.
how to talk to you or relate to you.
Right.
You know, it's like my friend who's lost 3 of her sons. You know, nobody knows how to relate to her, you know, and it's part of the loneliness of the loss.
Yeah.
You know, when you're widowed, especially at our age, you know, like nobody knows how to talk to you.
Yeah.
You know, nobody knows what to say about it. It's the thing they sidestep.
Yeah. And
Like-
also, and death is so, well, in his case, it was so, it was a, 8-day process, but it's instantaneous. And it's like, one minute we have this job and purpose and thing to do, not only myself, but all the people who are, close friends and family that were in my house. And all of a sudden, the coroner comes, takes his body away. And now what?
And death changes everything.
Now what? Yeah. I mean, it's like, not only do they not know how to relate to my grief, but what do we do?
Yeah. Well,
Now.
you went from actively being a wife and caretaker to you're lost from the caretaker role and you're not a wife in the same way anymore.
Right.
You're a widow.
Right.
A
Widow that just wants to eat rice and kimchi and be left the fuck alone. And certainly not have my color of rice questioned.
Right. It's so funny, even the fact that that's the thing you still focus in on.
I know. I was so angry, Julie. I was so angry that man chose that. But he didn't know. He still doesn't know.
Well, and I
love
think,
you, Dad.
Well, and I want to say that the, part of the story, if anybody's been listening along, especially with I think we talked about it when we did our first 2 on the Coal Wellness podcast and then launched over here. You talked about being out by the fire at your house and saying you miss Mike, and then your dad asked if he could resend it. You know, and so he is learning to resend it.
Yeah.
And try to show up differently.
Yes.
I think but it's a great example of how people don't know how to show up.
Right.
Right.
And we have to teach them, how we want them to show up for us and see if they can, do it in fits and spurts and tries.
And I've done a lot. I've dealt with a lot of death, and I still, like, the more I deal with, the less I know how to show up.
Yeah.
In the moment of death, I can show up later, but in the moment of death, it's always because it just taps into all my grief, and I take on your stuff, and like I have to put separation there, which makes people feel like I'm not present.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where, like, there's a lot of people present in that moment, so that's not my moment anyway, But yeah, it's hard. I've been reflecting on that lately. So, but that's where we left off, and you and I kind of connected beforehand.
Yep.
Do you want to do the part where you kind of, as far as flow, we talked about it, but do you want to talk about the funeral and then, talk about what that represented and then kind of what it's been left like since, and even just up to the most recent?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That way that's its own encapsulated thing, and then we really kind of leave off with where it is, which is the reality of grief.
Yeah. As I sit here with you. So Mike died on June 6th, and I buried my husband on my 41st birthday. Mm-hmm. Yep, June 9th. And I remember Steve saying, Joanna, are you sure you want to do this? Steve, the pastor. You sure you want to do this? And I was like, I was still very much just in, go mode. And I'm like, well, it's better, just as good a day as any. And he's like, yeah, but what if, in the future, your birthday becomes a joyous thing again. And, this is still on there. I was like, nope, it's going to be on my birthday. I don't know why. And there also was just this like feeling that this is the way it was supposed to be on my birthday. So anyway, funeral. And what was really... So I've said in the podcast before, I started writing Mike's eulogy when he was still alive, but I knew he was going to die that day. Right. Something in me just knew. And the words just flowed. And as I'm staring at him, still living, but very much
dying,
transitioning into, the afterlife, I knew exactly what I wanted to say. And it was all about it was about that last year of his life and how he got right with himself and with God. And not doing what most people do at funerals and only eulogizing the good parts
or a glorified version
or a glorified version. And only focusing on that. I wanted to convey the message that Mike, yes, was an awesome person. He was larger than life. He had this charismatic personality. He was a good dad. He was a good husband, all that. But he worked really, really hard that last year of his life to do things that left us with that. There goes my stomach. That
sorry for all of our bodily sounds today.
He put a lot of work in to get right with himself, us, God, everybody and anybody that he felt like he owed, I don't even owed the right word, but wanted to get right with. Mm-hmm. And I don't even know how else to say it. Get right with doesn't sound right. But anyway, So we had the funeral, and is there anything else you want to say about that? Or
I mean, the funeral was very much a celebration of his life.
Yeah.
It was very much a recognition that he was a flawed human, but that, the celebration really was that he got centered in a way that, he could die at peace.
Yes. And
seriously, y'all could be at peace with, him.
We could let go easier, I guess.
Yeah.
If that's possible.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and there's also, it wasn't left in the tragedy. I mean, the death itself was a tragedy, but like the tragedy that had befalled y'all. We cannot be serious today.
I know.
It's okay. It's heavy stuff. But the way things had gone down a year prior, right? Like he could have gotten sick and died then.
Yeah.
And he got sick and he got to make it right.
Yeah.
Like he got to leave off with a different story.
Yes.
And that was the celebration at his funeral. It's just that he was able to make peace and leave people with a different story.
Yeah, and he was willing and able to make peace with anyone who would give him their ear.
Sure.
And their heart.
Yeah, there were people who wouldn't.
And there were people who wouldn't. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But he tried.
Yeah.
He tried real hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that funeral, I don't really remember a whole lot of the weeks after because I drank a whole lot of wine and kept drinking wine and kept drinking wine and kept drinking wine. And I thought that was all normal. Mm-hmm. People kept telling me that was normal.
Right.
And I guess to some degree it was normal, and I tell people a lot of times that had it not been for that wine, I don't know mentally and emotionally what would have happened. I suspect that I would have snapped, somehow. So what else? Okay, what do you want to segue into?
So that actually raises a good point of the ways that we insulate ourselves from feeling it fully.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to acknowledge that because grief is a process, right?
Yeah.
And so what's happened recently is we've been revisiting this with all the anesthetics removed.
Yes. Yeah. And I have coping mechanisms now, but they are not the coping mechanisms that block.
Yeah.
They are the coping mechanisms that help me move through, but it still hurts real bad.
Yeah.
And this process has over the past 5 or 6 weeks has stirred a lot up in me. And after our last podcast recording, I was not okay.
Yeah.
I had about 2 weeks of real hard life, internal, life. Yeah, it was rough. I had to leave work one day, and people could see it, they'd instantly, are you okay?
Yeah.
No, I'm not. And in the past I would have, I'm fine. I've been recording this podcast and I'm sure that it's probably stirring things up inside, but I'm okay. And this time I'm like, no, this is what's happening. I know it's stirring things up inside. This is part of the grief process and I am not okay. And yes, if you are okay with me leaving, then I need to leave and go take care of myself. Yeah.
Yeah, one day, a few days after you called and said, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
And we just talked.
Yep.
And I witnessed.
Yeah.
Because I can't make it better.
No, nobody can.
No.
Nobody can.
But I think it's important to understand that, like, we can, the things that were not necessarily the most healthy, like the things that blocked.
Yeah.
Right? The things that blocked, they still serve their purpose, you know?
Yes.
So, like, it's
survival.
It's important not to look back on it in morbid regret.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't look back on it either with shame or anything like that. You know, I was just doing the best that I could do. And
even with the more recent stuff. Too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And thankfully, no one got real hurt, you know, namely myself, because I was doing it mainly to myself. But yeah, it served a purpose. And I mean, I was surviving, you know, and I look back on it, I was like, yeah, that was a big deal. My husband died. Yeah. You know, my child and children's stepfather and father, you know, died. I mean, he was a whole human who was just gone.
Yeah. And he was a part of your puzzle.
Yes, he was. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, our livelihood was gone. Yeah. You know, businesses were gone because he was, you know, the general contractor. He was the metal cutter. You know, I just did the account management kind of stuff. I couldn't do it without him.
But dig deeper. He was part of your puzzle.
Yeah, he was. I'm just, yes, it was so many pieces of the puzzle, you know, so many pieces. And it's not, I think I tend to just think of like, God, my stomach. When I think about his death for a long time would just think of my husband's gone, you know, that kind of like touchy-feely kind of stuff. And it's really just until lately that I'm like, I am grieving the fact that the work that we did in the world was gone also. You know, that was such a creative outlet for both of us. And I'm left here on earth, you know, and I'm missing that creative outlet, you know. And so this kind of stuff, these projects that we do, they're filling that space, you know, and I think I'm having that realization now of this feels so good because it's been missing for so long. Yeah. You know?
Well, it taps into that creative space, but it also is, even though it's bringing up all the stuff, it's also a place you find joy.
Yeah.
And purpose.
Yes.
Yeah.
Purpose.
And connection.
Yeah.
Connection to, you know, part of grief recovery is finding meaning and purpose, you know, and I think that we use the toxic positivity angle with that, which is like we try to find meaning and purpose in the death immediately. Yeah. And then we delay the process, right? But I think those are functional and they're necessary. It's part of the grief process. But like when we talk about meaning and purpose, it's really like, how do we lose ourselves and find ourselves again?
Yeah.
You know, on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And how do we lose everything that we feel like was a part of that and all the hopes and dreams that we feel like we lost with it. And in so many ways, your sense of identity.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, and how do you reconnect with an identity? And then you have to walk through all the guilt pieces of like, am I forgetting them?
Yeah.
You know, and all the fear pieces, like, will I forget what their voice sounded like? Will I feel like what it felt like? You know, what it felt like, all those pieces. I know those are pieces you've been wrestling with. I mean, it's why you put the picture up and you touch it and kiss it. And
yeah, absolutely. And also, you know, even with Colton, you know, he was only 2.5 when Mike died. And he, Colton would have had a totally different life had his dad lived. Yeah. You know, he would be, most likely, would still be Colton, but he would have a totally different life.
Well, and it's, you know, his mom, you show up hard with him because he feels safe sharing voice with the missing piece that he feels like that brings not having his dad. I mean, he communicates that.
Yeah, he does.
And that's part of the grief process too, you know, is that his shared identity is altered by Mike's death.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it was totally blunted, you know, and I think, you know, I wonder all the time, am I doing right by him, you know? And like, I'm not giving him the life that he would have had. I don't know how to give him the life that he would have had. You know, yeah. I'm not Mike. Yeah. I'm Joanna. And I don't know how to do the things that Mike did. You know, I enjoyed them very much, but I don't know how to do them though.
Yeah.
You know, and so there's a lot. If there's any guilt in any part of this grief process, that's a huge chunk of it.
Sure.
Is the guilt of, am I giving Colton the life that he should have had? You know,
Right.
kind of thing. And
Right.
I can flog myself pretty hard about that one.
Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah. You know, it's this piece of, you know, it's interesting. Have been watching, you know, I've lost a number of friends and they've have kids left behind. And I mean, you know, just a few days ago was the anniversary of Jennifer's death. 18 years. I just can't believe it. You know, and Daryl's 21 now. And there's so many questions, you know, so many questions that you'll never be able to answer. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that missing piece is always going to be a gulf of unanswerable questions and want, you know, and you can't close that gulf for them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you just have to let them know that, like, unfortunately we can't know, you know. Filling in the narrative is where we get in trouble.
Yeah.
You know, and that's for you. Filling in the narrative that Colton could have had this whole, like, who knows what the life would have looked like, you know. Right. It's I come back to the piece of, with Derrick, I always come back to, and Derrick, if you're listening, I love you, you know, but I always come back to, like, if your mom was using again, you know, if, like, there's a whole set of variables that could have changed the outcome to not be what you dream it could have been, you know. And that's part of the challenge also, not to glorify what it could have looked like, you know. I mean, it's wrestling with understanding that there's no way to know, and that we're all doing the best we can, you know, and that it's okay for them to long for the hole that's left, like that gulf of want and need that's left behind when they lose a parent, you know. And in her case, she lost both of her parents, you know, so that gulf of want and need that she has, like wondering what each of her parents were like, you know, and having the stories of people to fill in, but no memories. Like, no memories to even know what, like, she can't even remember what her mom felt like or smelled like, or, you know.
Yeah.
So that's tough.
It is.
You know.
And that long, God, so this is just popping in my head, and we can just touch on it real quick. So you and I were talking about interfamily systems, therapy and counseling.
Yeah. Internal family systems.
Yeah, but this is like, I'm talking about like interfam, like the people inside of me.
Yeah, your parts.
The parts.
That's internal family systems.
Is it? Okay. So one of the names of one of the parts of me is longing, and longing gets the shit beat out of her by another part of me called snarky, another part of me called silent, and you know, and that silent is the judgment, you know, but it's that longing gets the shit beat out of her. Yeah.
And understanding that the silent and judgment is still a protector. Yeah. Because longing has been hurt so many times in reality that they take on that protective part.
Yes.
Yeah, I have my analytical part beats up my playful part all the time. You know?
Capricorn. Capricorn.
Yeah. Like, I mean, that's, you know, we do so much work with I do internal family systems work too. And, you know, I do so much work with my therapist and session to set the stage for my analytical part to step aside. Yeah. And I've been working on actively doing that, and I've been spontaneously crying because I'm connecting with myself, you know. Yeah. And it's pretty emotional, and pretty emotional work, you know. So, and all the ways that life shows up and forces, you know, silent or snarky to show up and, you know, stuff down longing.
Yeah, my counselor said, you know, what do snarky and silent need? Yeah. In order to feel safe enough to step back and let longing talk. So they need longing to shut the fuck up.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. You know, that's so it.
Yeah, and Ree said, okay, let's set a boundary here. We can communicate, but we are not going to be abusive to ourselves, you know, our parts, and calling names and, you know, telling us shut the fuck up and stuff. Yeah. Anyway, that was a rabbit hole, but I just think this whole like inner parts thing is just so interesting.
Well, and then you can see the, you know, those parts that feel like they're even abusive towards longing, you know, you can start to see them in the role of protectors, you know, and that, you know, longing is an exile part that never got honored, you know, like, and so, yeah, that's a big piece of it too, you know. Yeah, I mean, I definitely, even in my healthier relationships, keep recreating scenarios with people who can't witness me. Yeah. When I'm in pain. You know what I mean? And so like I'm having to wrestle with that right now. And that's one of the parts that's making me like, that's one of the parts I'm connecting with.
Yeah.
Is like just that deep abandonment wound.
Yes. And I'm for my own self, I'm writing that down.
So, and so it's like my whatever my part, that soft part of me that needs to be witnessed just seems to like spur judgment and shame and some of the people around me, and it gets beat up, and I need to be able to self-soothe that and find this internal state to be able to manage that and offer what it needs so that it doesn't seek validation externally.
Yes.
But learning that lesson and internalizing it is really hard.
Yeah.
And it requires a lot of grief. An analytical part doesn't like grief. I can analytically talk about grief all day long, but like my analytical part, doesn't want it to show up in my body.
Yeah.
So trying to connect with that piece. So, yeah, I appreciate that that level of work. Yeah. So if you're listening to this and you have grief, which most of us do in some way, shape, or form, and if you have, like grief is a process and it requires a whole host of self-compassion.
Yeah, and it's not like a 7-day process or 7-step or however many steps there are.
It's a lifetime process.
Oh my God. Yeah, I'll never be relieved of the grief of losing Mike.
Yeah.
I am coming to terms with it, but I will never be 100% relieved of it, and it will never not affect me in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
It is part of who I am.
Yeah, it's part of your story.
Yeah.
Now it's part of your body.
Yep, it is absolutely, part of my body.
Yeah, it's part of your collective narrative, and it's part of your genetic, lineage now too.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So, but that's getting a little deep.
It is.
I love it though.
I do too.
Yeah. So,
and if you don't love it, this podcast is not for you, probably.
I don't know. I feel the instinct to wrap it there. What do you think, Scott?
We're running 30 minutes.
Yeah, I think that's a good one because I think that we could start beating that to death. I feel like this is a process of us acknowledging it and witnessing it together and just sharing it with our process with other people today.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, now let me ask you this. Is this going to be the end of this specific series, my story? I think there's still a ton to talk about, but as far as recounting the story, we're kind of at the free-for-all part. Mike has...
Because I think that so many of the things that we talk about from now on are their own individual topic areas that we don't necessarily frame in the context of your story, but in the context of us, going, shifting focus. I think that I want to capture what I think Scott was trying to do is that we mentioned Mike a lot.
Yeah.
We mentioned that scenario. We touch on the grief points. And I think this was our opportunity to really introduce that topic. I mean, that story to our listening audience and to anybody who comes along and finds us so that they understand.
Yeah.
They have an opportunity to understand the story as we do.
Yeah, like you always say, context.
Yeah, to the extent that somebody can listen to a 5-part series about your life,
right,
that happened over 46 years.
Yeah,
but I think it's important to that was such a significant set of circumstances, and those years were fucking intense.
Yeah,
and it needed a story. And I'm going to say this. I think Scott's instinct is to do it but I think it cleared the air for your creativity.
Yeah.
I think that there was a piece of grief you needed to tap into so that you could really get into that place because I would imagine that creativity part is probably there with the longing part and it gets shut down by snarky and silent.
Yep.
And maybe even some kind of imposter syndrome. You're not good enough.
Yeah.
Stuff. So, you and I have definitely talked about how we build out this creative project, and I think there's some fruit for that. But we're working it out in real time.
Yeah,
and you guys get to see it. There's nothing behind the curtain in this process. Mm-hmm. We're just showing it. We're living it out loud.
Yep.
So authentically.
Yes.
Fumbly.
Gurgly.
Yeah, definitely gurgly. Hauntingly.
Yeah.
So thank you everybody for being with us.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to my story.
Well,
Part of my story.
I think that we had a collective bearing of witness. And so what we've done is we've created and cultivated at least these early adopters who are with us through this part of the story.
Yeah.
Get to practice that piece of holding space for you as you shared this and did your, we're witnessing with you as we do our collective healing, your collective healing.
Yeah.
And I think that that's some of the space that we offer moving forward. I think that's going to be some of our creative outlet. My personal opinion. We'll see.
We shall see. We're in the free fall now.
Yeah. And it's fun. It'll be cool.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, thank you everybody for bearing witness with us. Thank you for sharing with me as always. I mean, I just appreciate our space together and our friendship a lot.
Yeah.
I love you.
I love you too.
Very much. And I love you guys out there. You can catch us on Facebook. You can actually hear us and see us on Facebook and YouTube. You can hear us on iTunes or Apple Podcast or whatever they call it now. And, and Spotify. Did I get everything? And then we have an Instagram handle. We got to get active on social.
I know.
We'll do that at some point. Scott, Palmetto Moose Productions. Check him out. He's our guy. He's always hooking us up and taking good care of us. Yep. And we just appreciate you guys out there. And until next time, we love you and thank you for everything.
Yeah, thanks,
y'all have
guys.
a good one.
Bye.